What is up, my friends? Welcome to Flippin' Bats. The regular season is over. I can't believe it. It's playoff time. 162 games have come and gone. We're going to talk about the playoffs, playoff preview, my predictions from earlier in the year. We're going to talk the massive Astros Tigers series and who I'll be rooting for throughout. We got chaos on Monday, Braves and Mets, double header that was going to three teams potentially after Sunday, three teams on the National League side of things were still possibly going to make the playoffs. Mets, Braves, Diamondbacks, and it all came down to a doubleheader Monday. We'll talk all about that. And then my playoff bracket preview. We'll work my way through it all the way up to the World Series. Oh, man, I am pumped for October. It all starts today, Tuesday, playoffs. We're getting the wild card games to start. Before we get into the playoff bracket and the playoff predictions and breaking down the series, let's talk the top storylines that we got heading into this October because they're all over the place. I'll give you three top storylines that I'm looking forward to. First off is going to be Shohei Ohtani's playoff debut. Shohei making the playoffs. What a year. Just short of a triple crown this year. What a season for Shohei. Absolutely remarkable. One of the best offensive seasons we have ever seen. But what we have never seen is Shohei in the playoffs. Now we're going to get to see him there. How does he perform? This is going to playoffs leaves a mark on your career, on your legacy. When you talk players' career, the talk turns to October. You know, when you talk about Mike Trout, it's that he's only played in 3 playoff games in his career, and he's got 1 hit in the playoffs. Still an all-time great, in my opinion, but that does become a conversation. When it comes to Clayton Kershaw, one of the greatest regular season pitchers of all time, but really struggles in October. The playoffs are where it's all won and lost, and it becomes a big talking point. And Shohei's going to have a chance. In my opinion, Shohei rises to the occasion of the biggest occasions. World Baseball Classic. Performed great, came in to pitch, close it out against Mike Trout, big situation, but I'm excited to see how he does in the playoffs. Also, will he pitch? It's October, and we have still not heard for certain that Shohei will not be pitching in the postseason. Nobody has officially ruled it out. Will that happen? I don't know, but all eyes should be on Shohei this October and if he's going to pitch or not. He hasn't pitched since August 23rd, 2023. Will we see it? So it's been over a year. Been a year and a month plus. Will we see it? I like to think that we will not. I hope we do not. For the sake of Shohei, I hope we don't see him. I talked about this a couple weeks ago when they first said that they aren't ruling out him pitching. I don't think it would be the smartest thing in the world. I really don't. But just imagine there's a World Series, that bullpen gate opens, it's the 9th inning of a 1-run ball game, and Shohei Ohtani comes trotting in from the bullpen. That would just be absolutely electric, but I don't think it's the smartest thing in the world. Shohei, October, we're finally getting it this year. I can't wait for the entire world to watch Shohei Ohtani play. That's storyline number 1. Number 2 for me, Aaron Judge. Will Aaron Judge perform in October? The last time they were in the playoffs, that answer was overwhelmingly no. To the point where, you remember, he broke the AL home run record, and then days later, the playoff starts, he really struggled, and then he was getting booed by Yankees fans. That's how bad he was in October. In 44 career postseason games, Aaron Judge is hitting .211. I said it with Shohei. I talked about Trout and Kershaw. Your postseason is where you make your legacy. You can have players considered all-time greats. Mike Trout will forever be an all-time great. Clayton Kershaw, forever be an all-time great. But legacy comes in October and how you perform there. And Aaron Judge has a bit of work to do to turn it around. Last time he played in October, he was getting booed by his home fans after one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time. This year, once again, one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time. How will he perform? I don't know. I hope he steps up on the game's biggest stage. He's literally and physically one of, if not the biggest superstar in the game of baseball. And I hope he performs. I hope he doesn't. I hope it's not a 211 hitter in October. I hope he performs. I think it's good for the game of baseball. But that is a big question mark for me is when the lights are the brightest come October, will Aaron Judge now step up? That's number 2 for me. Number 3, will the bye continue to hurt the top 2 seeds? The only team since this playoff schedule has come into play that has figured out the bye is the Houston Astros. Other than that, every single year we are seeing team after team that has that first round bye lose in the first round. The Los Angeles Dodgers, every year of this playoff format. The Baltimore Orioles last year. The Atlanta Braves, every time the Phillies come into town, they're getting the Braves are getting the brake speed off of them because of that bye. Brian Snitker even said it himself. We haven't figured out the bye. We got to figure it out. I don't love it, but we have to figure out how to do better. The Astros have figured it out. They do not have a bye this year, so it's going to be a bit of a different path for the Astros. But can these teams figure it out? The Dodgers, first round struggles every year of this. So many injuries this year as well. Will it be different? The lineup's certainly different. You have Shohei, Mookie, and Freddie Freeman. One of the greatest, assuming Freddie's injury is okay. He was walking around in a walking boot during their celebration the other day. So not great there, but apparently word is that he should be okay. Might have to play through some pain, but we'll see if he's going to play for that first round bye is huge for them there. But other than that, injuries all year long. Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto for the majority of the year, but Yamamoto is going to be huge for them come October. Walker Buehler injuries, Clayton Kershaw injuries, Dustin May injuries, Emmett Sheehan injuries. I could go on. The injuries after injuries just kept piling up. And now on top of that, you're going to have another first round bye, which you haven't figured out. And if the Padres can win in round 1, you're going to have to face a Padres team that I think is better than the Dodgers. So can these teams figure it out? The Orioles no longer have a bye, but their injury concerns. The Yankees need to figure out the bye. The Guardians. So we've had a couple years now for teams to realize, okay, our offense needs to stay ready somehow. Pitching, this will be great for us. Offenses have really struggled coming off of a bye. What have the Houston Astros done that nobody else has been able to figure out? This year, we will see, but that's a big storyline for me. So before we head into these playoff predictions, big storylines ahead of the playoffs. Shohei Ohtani's playoff debut. Also, will he pitch? Aaron Judge, how's he going to perform in October? He's a 211 career postseason hitter to this point. And also the first round bye. Will we see those 4 teams, Yankees, Guardians, Dodgers, Phillies, be able to figure out the first round bye? We shall see. But let's get into the American League preview. At the beginning of the year, here's what I had for you to make the playoffs. Astros, Orioles, Twins, Yankees, Mariners, Rangers. The 6 teams we now have are not exactly those. We have the Orioles, the Royals, we have the Astros, the Tigers, the Yankees, and the Guardians. So the teams that I had making it that did not are the Twins, Mariners, and Rangers. Couple things about those teams. First off, for the Twins, I had the Twins winning the AL Central, and we ended up with who? There is not a single person out there that had 3 AL Central teams making the playoffs this year. Nobody. And then if you were to say that 3 of them made the playoffs and one of them wasn't the Twins, I just don't know if I would ever believe that in a million years. But that is what happened. The Guardians, Royals, and Tigers ended up making the playoffs there. Twins out. Mariners didn't make it. The defending champs, the Rangers, didn't make it as well. The Mariners are just a baffling organization to me. The Mariners. That's all there is to say about it. One of the best pitching staffs, top to bottom, one of the best pitching staffs ever. And they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Second worst strikeout percentage in baseball. Worst in the American League. Top to bottom, that lineup just underperforms continually. And I don't blame the lineup. You could see this. You've seen this for half a decade. It's the same team. They're going to pitch lights out, and they're not going to be able to hit. And are they going to be able to make the playoffs? Well, 4 times out of 5, the odds say they're going to be just on the outside looking in. In 2020, they finished 2 games back. In 2021, they finished 2 games back. In 2022, they barely squeaked in. They did make the playoffs. In 2023, 1 game back. This year, 1 game back. This team is built to win, yet they just continually don't add around them. That's what gets me so flustered about this Mariners team is it's always the same. You're always a playoff team because of how good that rotation is going to be, and they never do what needs to be done to get to October. They never add the big bat that needs to be added. Bats, plural. How can 99% of baseball fans from the outside looking in say, man, this Mariners team, they're going to pitch this year. I just don't know if they're going to be good enough to hit. You have a rotation with essentially 5 guys that are in their prime, and all 5 could potentially be an ace elsewhere. What are we doing if you're the Mariners? I get so pissed off at that organization for their lack of commitment to this team and the city and the fan base. It's ridiculous that they don't make the playoffs with that rotation. Absolutely ridiculous. Julio Rodriguez and that rotation, what a foundation. And you go and build outside of it by just adding a couple of role pieces to hopefully put together a great offense when you just know that's not going to be the case. Spend the money. Your window is post-COVID through who knows how many years you have. But you've missed a strong majority of your window. I promise you that. Once again, Mariners marinering and missing the playoffs. Rangers, just a nightmare of a year. Yes, they had injuries, but their offense just was nowhere near as good as it was the year prior. Also, DeGrom and Scherzer at the top of that rotation didn't pan out, didn't have them for the strong majority of this year. But I want to talk about the AL Central. I can't. The Guardians, the Royals, and the Tigers. Guardians get a bye. Yankees get a bye. So the Yankees are the 1 seed in the American League. So they get a bye in the first round. Guardians are the 2 seed in the American League. So they get a bye. Shout out to the Tigers as well for getting into the playoffs. They will be your 6th seed in the American League and are going to go up against the Houston Astros. But let's start with the Royals-Orioles series. We get the 4 seed Orioles against the 5 seed Royals. Now, just to take a step back before we dive into this, my preseason predictions for the World Series were the Philadelphia Phillies over the Baltimore Orioles. So this is where the Orioles march starts. Will I stick with that? Well, we'll see as I talk my way through this. Let's start with Royals at Orioles. We're getting a game 1 matchup of Cole Ragans against Corbin Burns. I love this. I love this matchup. The two pitching matchups on the American League side of things are just unbelievable. But Cole Ragans, one of the best young starting pitchers in the game of baseball. Corbin Burns, one of the best pitchers in the game of baseball, period. Both of them are. Let's take a step back to last year. What did the Orioles learn from last year? I don't know. They got swept out of there by the Rangers. They didn't play well. So really, I come into this year and you think, okay, the Orioles have that experience, but do they? I mean, what did they learn from getting swept last year? What do you take away from that and say, okay, this is what we can use to do better? Well, there was nothing really to write home about last year. So I'm interested to see how they come out of the gates. This is not an Orioles team that is coming into the playoffs firing on all cylinders. They have won a few games in a row to end the year, so they are playing better. The year started incredible, and then it was just straight downhill. And now they've at least won a few games coming into it. The Royals, on the other hand, played really well all year long, and then right down the stretch, kind of crumbled and backpedaled, but found a way to get into the playoffs. But this Royals team, really good. They're a really fun watch. Obviously, with Ragans, that rotation's really good. Lugo's going to go in game 2 for the Royals. Bobby Witt Jr. is a superstar in this game. Salvi was great. Their additions of Yuli Gurriel's been really good for them since they picked him up. Tommy Pham as well. So this lineup is pretty good. I just don't love the way that they've been playing of late and lately. I think the Orioles kind of figured it out. I am going to take the Orioles here in this series just because I like them to get off to a good start. I think Corbin Burnes comes out and shoves in playoff game one. I think the Orioles can win game one in a low scoring matchup. And then if you can win game one at home, I like them to win one of the next two. I think that offense is really deep. The Orioles are just dealing with so many injuries. This is why I picked them to get to the World Series, because of a rotation of Corbin Burnes, Kyle Bradish, and Grayson Rodriguez. And now you're only going to have one of those guys. Injuries, injuries, injuries for this Orioles team, but I do think they can take the Royals and win that series to advance to play the New York Yankees in round two. Before we talk about round two, we got to complete the wild card round. Tigers at Astros. Everybody knows I have a few toes in each box here. I don't even know if that's a saying. I am flustered by this series. It's no surprise. I will forever root for my brother and my brother's teams everywhere he goes. I have since I was born. He's 9 years older. He was playing travel ball, played for a team called the Richmond Virginians. I rooted for them. I rooted for the Old Dominion Monarchs. I rooted for the Detroit Tigers. I rooted for the New York Mets. Rooted for the Houston Astros. Forever. I don't care where he goes next. I'll root for him. Then you have the Detroit Tigers. My brother got drafted there in 2004. 3, 4. One of those years. Rooted for them ever since. Played for them for 5 years. I love that organization. I love the people in the organization. Many still there from when I played there. But it's just, it's different, right? It's different when my brother gets drafted there. I immediately become a fan. But then when I get drafted there and play in that organization for 5 years and see it from within and get to know every single person, from the owner on down to the cafeteria workers, to getting to eat lunch with Mr. Al Kaline, often just sitting in the cafeteria together on the minor league side and him just sharing stories from the past, moments that I will never forget in a million years. Showing up to hit in the cage at 5 a.m. and having Kurt Gibson feed me balls on the tee. You become part of the organization. And I feel that way forever. I'll forever root for the Tigers. Unfortunately, since I left the organization, which I promise you this has no factor, but since I left the organization in 2017, the Detroit Tigers have been bad. I mean, real bad. We're coming up on almost a decade of mediocrity or worse for the Detroit Tigers. And finally, in 2024, the Detroit Tigers are a playoff team again. And who do they play? They play the Houston Astros. Are you kidding me? Why? Why does this have to happen? Why can't I get at least a round where I can root my ass off for each team? No, I have to have them face each other in the very first round. We're getting the juggernaut of the American League for the last decade. The team that my brother has pitched for since 2017. The team that my brother might arguably be the best Houston Astros pitcher of all time. And now, in the first time they've made the playoffs since, 2015? 2016, 2015, the Detroit Tigers are going to face those Houston Astros in the first round. My head is in an absolute conundrum. And I'm going to tell you guys who I'm rooting for. I'm going to tell you who I'm picking to win this series. And I hope I don't piss off people here. I really do. I hope I don't piss people off because I love both these teams. I love both these teams with all my heart. I wish this wasn't happening. I really do. It sucks. I've been rooting my tail off for the Tigers to get to the playoffs, and they did it, and I lost my mind when it happened, and then it all worked out for them to play the Astros in the first round. Here's what we got. We got Framber Valdez against Tarek Skubal on the mound in game one. What a matchup. You kidding me? Tarek Skubal's the best pitcher in all of baseball. The best pitcher in baseball. I hear you with Chris Sale, but Tarek Skubal's the best pitcher in baseball. Framber Valdez has been unbelievable this year, especially for the last few months. So what a matchup we're going to get in game one. I think this game could go either way. I think the Tigers could come away with game one. Framber sometimes worries me in the playoffs. And that might just be me, but Framber sometimes, I don't know. You see these games where it's just ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. And then you see these games where he just seemingly like can't find the strike zone and then he's hitting guys. So I feel better in game one going with the best pitcher in baseball and Tarek Skubal. Now, I'm not going to go game by game here, but I could foresee the Tigers winning game one. From there, the pitching matchups are a bit uncertain at this point, not yet listed. Another question of this series is Justin going to be on the wild card roster? Wild card, you got 3 games. He just pitched on Saturday. I don't foresee him. Again, I want to preface this by I haven't spoken to Justin about this. I haven't reached out and said, hey, man, you going to be on the playoff roster? I'm just letting the chips fall where they may here. If I'm being realistic, he just pitched Saturday, threw well against the Guardians. I don't foresee him being one of the 3 starters, potential 3 starters in this series against the Tigers. There's a chance he comes out of the bullpen, right? So maybe he does make the roster. I don't know. Joe Espada was asked about it on Justin making the wild card roster, and he said, and this came out Monday, he said, we are talking about our roster and we'll finalize it tomorrow. So non-committal on if Justin makes the wild card roster there. And then also added that Yordan Alvarez will hit today and then evaluate if he's going to be good to go or not as well. So a lot of question marks there. But who knows if Justin's going to make the wild card roster. I ultimately think with the experience that they have, I do think the Houston Astros will win this series. I do think the Tigers will win a game. I do think Tarek Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball. I think he can outperform Framber Valdez. I do think the Tigers win a game. I think ultimately the Astros win this series. Personally, this is where I'm going to offend some people. Personally, there's nothing like family, right? I guess when it comes down to it, not I guess, I'm going to root for the Astros. This is a tough series for me. I always root for both teams. Now they're facing each other in round one, and I get the story. It's the first time the Astros have had their time. Their time is still going. Will they reach 8 consecutive ALCSs? I don't know. But there's the storyline there. And then on the other side, this is their first time. You got the gritty Tigers. You got the cardiac Cats for the first time in almost a decade making the playoffs with this team of Riley Green and Parker Meadows and Tarek Skubal out there killing it, and Reese Olson and Jackson Jobe now coming out of the bullpen. I love this Tigers team. I just think the experience of the Astros is going to be enough, and I think I will forever root for my brother, and I hope everybody can understand that. And I don't care if he doesn't have the most prominent role in the world on this team. My brother is my brother. I will root for his team. I will forever root for him to get a ring. I think the Astros and their experience can win this series against the Tigers, and I will be rooting for the Houston Astros in this series, though it is not easy to say. If the Tigers advance, I'm rooting for them from there out. But in this series, I'm going to go with my family. I'm going to root for Justin's team to win it, which means the Astros will advance to play the Cleveland Guardians. So we have Orioles against the Yankees on the American League side, as well as Astros at Guardians as the 2 versus 3 seed over there. Let's start with Orioles at Yankees without diving too deep into these series because we don't know pitching matchups. We don't know how the first round's going to go. This will be my first diversion from my preseason prediction. I just felt like the Orioles were a good enough team to get to the World Series because of that 3-headed monster. How many times have I talked about that over the years? The recipe to win in October is having 3 studs at least in a rotation. Being able to go Burns, Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez is disgusting. They can no longer do that. You have the Yankees that are going to go Garrett Cole. Obviously, they're going to be rested. We'll talk later about the 1 and 2 seeds and if the bye is good or if the bye is bad. But regardless, Garrett Cole's going to go in game 1 against the Orioles. Garrett Cole's by far their best pitcher. I do have injury concerns with the pitching concerns with the New York Yankees, but I ultimately think that lineup will be enough with all the Orioles injuries as well. I think the Yankees can win that series. I think Soto and Judge, that combo is going to be so much fun to watch. I'm excited to watch Jazz Chisholm in October as well. Ultimately, I think the one-seeded Yankees do advance in a very, very tight series against the Baltimore Orioles. I think that goes. I think that goes 5 games. That's that, and I think Garrett Cole comes back and pitches in a game 5, and the Yankees advance there to the ALCS. On the other side of things, we're getting Astros Guardians. I've been saying this for a little while with this Guardians team. Really good, really fun regular season. Pitching concerns me. If you were to tell me that the Guardians would have a bye in the first round of the playoffs before the year, I'd say, wow, their pitching was everything it was chalked up to be. But really, everything was backwards. Their offense was incredible. Regardless, we got robbed of a 40-40-40 season, but their offense has been what did it for the Guardians. They've been incredible. Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor, so clutch. The addition of Lane Thomas hasn't exactly worked out great for them. He hasn't been great, but I do think in October he lengthens that lineup a lot. I really like this Guardians offense. Pitching is going to be a struggle for me. And then I've been saying it for a while. I just don't see it. And when I was talking to Smoltz a couple weeks ago, I asked him, if you're looking at the American League, who's the most dangerous team? He listed the Cleveland Guardians. And the pushback that I gave him was, John, if the series started tomorrow, the Houston Astros against the Cleveland Guardians, you're picking the Guardians? And he said, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I think they're the most dangerous because it's a 6-inning game with them. If the Guardians are winning a game after 6 innings, they're going to shut it down. You got one of the greatest closers of all time, one of the best seasons of all time for a closer. Emmanuel Clase, as of right now, is one of the best closers ever. Obviously not the longest career to this point, but one of the best closers ever. They have a dynamic back of the bullpen, so they really shorten games. I just don't see the star power and the playoff experience to win against the Astros. I don't see it. I think the Astros once again beat the Cleveland Guardians to advance to their 8th consecutive ALCS to take on the Yankees. I foresee them with the Astros rotation, whatever they decide to do, some form or facet of Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown and Ronel Blanco and Spencer Arrighetti and Yusei Kikuchi and Justin having some role at some point. I don't know, but that rotation is dominant. And then pair that with an offense that once again will still have Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker. By this point, Yordan Alvarez, Jeremy Pena. I would once again take the Astros to win this series. That experience they have, the offense, the pitching, the back end of the bullpen. I do have a few concerns right now about Ryan Presley back there. I feel better about Brian Abreu. I would probably go Brian Abreu straight to Josh Hader, but regardless, I think this team is once again set up to win. And I think October is where they shine. So we're going to go the 1-seeded Yankees against the 3-seeded Houston Astros in the ALCS. Woo! This is going to be a fun series. This is the series I hope we get. We're going to get the 1-seeded Yankees, who are a little banged up. I do have their pitching question marks as well against the Astros, who haven't had their best year, but then they turn it on in October. We'll see what we get. But one thing I do know, and this is really all I need to say about this series, the one thing I do know is that come October, the Houston Astros are the New York Yankees' daddy. And we get to see that again in just a couple weeks. If we get Yankees at Astros, I'm taking the Astros. They own the Yankees in October. When's the last time the Yankees beat the Astros in October? And in the full series. Think about it. Really think about it. The Astros own them year after year after year. The Astros knock out the Yankees in the playoffs. And I think it happens again this year. The Astros get to their 8th consecutive ALCS and ultimately win against the Yankees to advance to the World Series. That is my prediction. It was not my preseason prediction. I had the Orioles getting to the World Series. I now have my concerns about the Orioles and their pitching rotation. I really have concerns about the New York Yankees and their pitching and their bullpen and their lack of depth in the offense. The Yankees offense from top to bottom, aside from Soto and Judge, when it's playoff time, when it's October, just you can pick and choose which guys you're going to let beat you. And unfortunate, if you're the Yankees, it's just not going to be Soto and Judge. Obviously you can't walk both of them back to back every single time. But if you get Soto out, you're walking Judge, and then you're getting to some form or facet of Giancarlo Stanton or an Austin Wells or Jazz Chisholm. Regardless of where you turn, it's not Aaron Judge. The best 1-2 punch in the playoffs offensively is Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And that includes what the Dodgers are doing out there. The two of them together are the best 1-2 punch in baseball. But I think you can find ways. If you can get Soto out, then you can find ways to pitch around Judge. Or regardless, I don't think their lineup is deep enough. Everyone think about this. Before I get called a homer, everyone think about this. In the rotation, 1 through 5, or playoffs, 1 through 4 in a rotation, who are you going to take? Yankees or Astros? You're going to take the Astros. Lineup, top to bottom, who are you taking? Yankees or Astros? I think Yankees fans are probably going to say, I'll take the Yankees there. If I'm being realistic, I'm taking the Astros top to bottom. The depth is so much more. And then bullpen-wise, hands down, I'm taking the Houston Astros. Give me the Astros in this series. Give me the Astros to keep up the dominance over the Yankees in October. And give me the Astros to get back to the World Series. I didn't think that would be the case at the beginning of the year, but here we are. Astros winning the American League. All right, over on the National League side of things, I mentioned that there was chaos in the NL, and boy, did we get chaos on Monday. So regular season ended Sunday for all but 2 teams, Braves and Mets, and they had to play a doubleheader. We mentioned it last week, had to play the doubleheader because of the postponement. And both games ended up mattering. So we knew heading into Monday that both games were going to need to be played, that Diamondbacks were the other team that this mattered for. So the situation, if the Braves and Mets both split, meaning each team wins one of the games, both of them will get in. If either team swept, if Braves won both, Braves and Diamondbacks get in. If the Mets won both, Mets and Diamondbacks get in. If the Mets and Braves split, the Diamondbacks are out. And that is what happened, but it was chaos. Game 1, Braves jumped out to an early lead. Game 1 was the most important. Game 1 was huge because then you could essentially just punt game 2, throw out whatever starter you wanted, throw out whatever reliever you wanted, rest whatever players you wanted. It didn't really matter. Braves jump out to an early lead in game 1. Mets come all the way back with a huge 6-run 8th inning. The Braves score 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning to retake the lead. And then Lindor homers in the 9th to take the lead again. Mets end up winning that game. No time to celebrate. Immediately turn right back around. Braves come out, and really just was kind of a weird game. Holmes pitched great in game 2 for the Braves. End up winning the ball game 3-0. So I think for the first time, I don't know this, but I think for the first time in the history of baseball, in each locker room, the home locker room and the visiting locker room, at the exact same time, both teams were celebrating after the second game because both got into the playoffs. So on the National League side of things, here's what I had at the beginning of the year. My prediction to start the year for the 6 teams: Dodgers, Phillies, Braves, Reds, D-backs, Cubs. Not great. What we ended up with in the National League side of things: Dodgers, Phillies, Brewers, Padres, Mets, Braves are the 6 teams that ultimately did get in, meaning neither World Series team from 2023 got in the playoffs. Rangers, D-backs, both gone. First time that has happened since 2007 that neither team even made the playoffs, which is crazy. So what we're going to do on the National League side of things is break down each wild card matchup and then work our way through the postseason and ultimately get to the NLCS get to the World Series, and predict my World Series winner. All right, let's start with Braves at Padres. Braves are immediately hopping on a plane after their celebration, heading all the way out to San Diego. Not easy travel there. Also, they had to throw everybody in the kitchen sink today against the New York Mets in both games. So I don't know what their pitching situation is going to look like. It ain't going to be pretty. Padres are going with Michael King in game 1. All we know for the Braves is that Brian Snitker said post-game that he does not think Chris Sale will even be available during the whole wild card series. So the future 2024 NL Cy Young Award winner Chris Sale will not even be available seemingly in the wild card round. So we'll see what they're able to do there. Still have some stud pitchers. Schwellenbach looked great today. I don't know when he's going to be able to go again, but Max Fried back there. So we'll see what they do in game 1. Not yet announced, but Michael King going for the Padres. These two teams haven't played in the postseason since the NLCS in '98. Braves at Padres. I'm pumped for this series. I love this Padres team. I think they are such a complete team. They're going to run out Michael King in game 1, Joe Musgrove in game 2, Dylan Cease if necessary for game 3. If not necessary, he will, in my opinion, start game 1 against the Dodgers. But we'll see. I love this Padres rotation. I love the Padres bullpen, best bullpen in baseball. I love their offense top to bottom. So I'm going to take the Padres against a Braves team that is crawling into the playoffs. Look, let's call it what it is. It's an unfortunate situation that happened. And they now have their backs against the wall as they get into the playoffs because of this situation. The doubleheader, losing game 1 of the doubleheader is massive because then you have to throw your bullpen guys again, all of your offensive players right back out there. Then you celebrate and immediately have to hop on a plane and get into San Diego really late. So backs are against the wall for them. And shout out to the Braves for even getting there with all the injuries they had to deal with all the adversity. Everybody thought they would win the NL East. Everybody was sure they would make the playoffs. But I don't think they saw it looking like this. They did get in, but it was by the literal skin of their teeth. In game 162, they got in. I don't think they're good enough as is to beat the Padres. I really like the Padres team. I think they advance to play the Los Angeles Dodgers. Next up, let's talk Mets at Brewers. Brewers are throwing Freddie Peralta in game 1. Mets, Luis Severino in game 1. So we'll go Severino against Freddie Peralta in game 1. This series, man, this is a tough one. So the Mets are 2-11 against the Milwaukee Brewers since 2023. 2-11. But what the Brewers don't have is Grimace, the savior of the Mets series. I've gone back and forth here. As I was watching the doubleheader, really wanted to think about what I thought was going to happen here. And ultimately, what I think happens is I think both of these teams are really good. I think both of them can make a run. Ultimately, I think the Mets are just going to parlay all this energy, all this momentum right into this series. I think their offense is firing right now. Francisco Lindor, though beat up a little bit due to his injury, playing through a lot of pain, is just putting this team on his injured back right now and is carrying them. I mean, we saw it in game 1 of the doubleheader, that homer in the 9th. Who knows what happens for the New York Mets? But winning game 1 was huge because it allows you to save that rotation. It allows you to not have to use your guys in the bullpen once again. It allows you to rest Lindor and to rest some of your starters. I think they parlay all of this right into their energy to beat the Brewers. Great year for the Brewers. I am concerned a little bit about their rotation. I have concerns, and I think the Mets can win this series. So I'm going to take the Mets to beat the Brewers and advance to play the Philadelphia Phillies in round 2. Let's get there. Let's talk Padres. Let's talk Dodgers. First postseason appearance in the career of Shohei Ohtani, who remarkable season. Absolutely. Now we get Shohei, Mookie, Freddie back to back in the playoffs. Let's not forget last year, first round exit again for the Dodgers. Mookie and Freddie combining for 1 hit total. Once again, we have the Dodgers with a first round bye. Once again, the Dodgers have not yet proven that they know how to win with that first round bye. I've said this before. The juggernaut of the regular season for the last decade is the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are absolutely the best regular season team in baseball over the last decade. We have to admit that they are one of the worst postseason teams over the last decade in baseball. They have one championship, that 2020 season, the shortened 2020 season that was just weird, wild, and wacky. They won the World Series that year. Other than that, I think the Dodgers have had about 3 or 4 teams that arguably should have won the World Series. Were talented enough to win the World Series. They have just done nothing but underperform in the postseason for far too long now. Will that change this year? I don't know. But they are running up against a Padres team that is firing on all cylinders. They have a dynamic lineup, top to bottom. I love what they do. Jackson Merrill, potential NL Rookie of the Year. Fernando Tatis comes back and has been really good since coming back. Manny Machado is hotter than ever right now. You have Luis Ariz. Shout out Luis Ariz, my friend, our friend of the pod, Luis Ariz, back to back batting titles, which is just unprecedented, unbelievable. Love that for him. Change that lineup completely. Rotation wise, really, really good. Love Dylan Cease. Love Joe Musgrove. Going to Yu Darvish, who's back. To Michael King, who's had an unbelievable year. I love this Padres team top to bottom, and I really do think that the Padres are going to once again kick out the Los Angeles Dodgers in the first round of the playoff. I just think they're an all-around better team. Pitching rotation, for sure. Bullpen, for sure. Padres have the best bullpen in baseball. Dodgers bullpen is not good. Dodgers pitching is completely beat up. Top 3 in the lineup, give me the Dodgers any and every day of the week. But lineup top to bottom, I think, is even a different conversation. So we'll see. Is Shohei going to pitch in that series? We'll see about that as well. But ultimately, I do think the Padres are going to be able to win this series against the Dodgers. So give me the Padres to advance over the Dodgers in what is once again going to be a first round exit for the underperforming Los Angeles Dodgers. All right, next up means we got the Mets at the Phillies for the NLDS. And I think, as everyone knows, I have the Phillies winning the World Series, was my preseason prediction. I think the Phillies are a complete team, top to bottom, pitching rotation, offense, unbelievable. Back into the bullpen, they do have some good arms. That would be my weakness point for the Phillies, is their bullpen. But I ultimately think that they have enough to get it done in this series. The Mets run has been incredible. I love what they've done, but this Phillies team, I think from the beginning of the year, has been primed to be an incredible team. They are built for October with Wheeler, Nola. Suarez had a really good year for the majority of the year. I know it wasn't as good in the end as the beginning of the season was, but ultimately a good year for him. I love their rotation. I love their offense. Give me the Phillies to win that series, and the luck of Grimace will ultimately run out there, which means we have an NLCS of Padres, Phillies. Padres and Phillies. What a matchup that could be. Man, I would love to get that matchup. Anyway, regardless, what I think is going to happen here, I think the Phillies are going to get back to the World Series for the first time since a couple of years ago, 2022, against the Astros, who I do have on the American League side of things. So I think we get a rematch there. I think the Phillies get there over the Padres. I do think that series could potentially go 7 games. I love that series. If we get Padres Phillies, I love it. Give me Nola, give me Wheeler going pitching multiple times in that series. Again, I just think that offense is better than the Padres, to be honest. Top to bottom, I think the offense is better rotation wise. I think Wheeler will be the best pitcher in that postseason series. God, but Cease is really good there as well. Without diving too much into the series, because we don't know if this series is even going to happen. This is a prediction, but if this does happen, I do have the Phillies over the Padres in the NLCS, and the Phillies once again advancing to the World Series, meaning I will have the Phillies versus the Astros, a rematch of the 2022 World Series. And ultimately, what I think is going to happen is what I predicted in the preseason. I am sticking with it, my friends. I said it before the year started that the Phillies are winning the World Series, and I'm going to stick with it. From the day I made that prediction, I feel even better about it at this point right now. I think this team has shown all year long just how good they are. I think they went through a little bit of a lull, but right when they needed to, right towards the end of September, picked it back up. And again, this team is built for October. World Series matchup is the Phillies against the Astros, and ultimately, the Philadelphia Phillies are going to win the 2024 World Series, just as I predicted in the preseason. I did not predict the Astros. I did have the Orioles, but I do not. I have my worries with the Orioles bullpen and starting pitching, obviously, with the loss of Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez. But that is what I have. Phillies over Astros. What a postseason we're about to get. The postseason starts today. This episode releases on Tuesday, recorded Monday night after the doubleheader ended. And now we get postseason baseball. We get Astros and Tigers. First game tomorrow is first game Tuesday. So it starts Tuesday. Astros Tigers will be up first, which brings me to a whole nother point. Before we finish up here, I get frustrated at points with the playoff schedule and all of that, but what we ultimately have with this series, and again, every single game between the Astros and Tigers is scheduled to be a day game. Every game. And why this frustrates me, and I want to talk about this, is because it just, to me, you have the Astros, who are the juggernaut of Major League Baseball over the last decade, against the hottest team in baseball and the unprecedented Cinderella of the postseason, the Detroit Tigers, meeting up, and you give every single game of that series a day game. And this has happened time and time again with the Houston Astros over the last few years. Every playoff game is a day game. And I get it. You want the Yankees in prime time. You want the Dodgers in prime time. But at a certain point, and I think the Astros are used to this, that the Tigers are just happy to be in the postseason. But I just think ultimately to give a team and the Astros a day game, every single year, it just gets frustrating. And how can you say this series isn't just as exciting? Again, the juggernaut of baseball over the last decade, the villain of baseball. Everybody loves a villain. You want to talk about watching? People will watch the Houston Astros just to root against them. And then the Cinderella of baseball, the Detroit Tigers. I would love to see one of those games in prime time. Just one. I'm not asking for every game to be in prime time, but maybe make one of the games just a little bit later. Just not the first game of the day. Is that too much to ask for? Apparently, yes. But we do get Houston Astros against the Detroit Tigers. What a lot of storylines there. AJ Hinch back in Houston. Justin back playing the Detroit Tigers, where it all started for him. A lot of storylines there, but I am excited. And it all starts today. The field is set, my friends. On the National League side of things, we got Dodgers, Phillies, Brewers, Padres, Mets, Braves. On the American League side of things, we have Astros, Guardians, Yankees, Orioles, Royals, Tigers. The 12-team field is set, and I cannot wait. Stay tuned for everything Flippin' Bats. We'll be with you all postseason long, bringing the episodes. It will be a little bit more than just this Tuesday, Saturday with Smolt's schedule. Going to try and record another in between that and get every bit of information out possible. But I could not be more pumped for this. And it all starts today, my friends. I will be with you every step of the way. Follow me on Twitter. I'll be posting every possible thing you can imagine. I will be an absolute mess during this Astros Tigers series. It's just unfortunate, again, that this is happening. But there is nothing, and I repeat, nothing like playoff baseball. And it all starts today. Let's go. Follow along Flippin' Bats Pod, wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. You can also watch every single episode on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod there. Make sure you leave a review, 5-star review, comment, whatever. It all really helps. Comment on YouTube. I hop in the chat pretty much every single episode and talk to people and comment back and have a discussion. I absolutely love it. Love the YouTube community as well, so follow along there. We're also on all social media, at Flippin' Bats Pod everywhere. Follow along for some really cool stuff. But I love it. Playoff baseball is here. Phillies over Astros is my prediction for this season. Enjoy the postseason, everyone. We'll be back in just a couple of days, and we'll have everything for you along the way. Love you guys. Remember, until next time, my friend, find your bat and flip it.